Donald Trump had done it again. The atmosphere was electric, the cheers deafening as he basked in the adulation of his supporters. Against all odds, against the expectations of pundits and pollsters, he was back. The White House awaited. The night was filled with a sense of disbelief and excitement as the unexpected results began to sink in. This time, it was a triumphant return, a reclaiming of what he believed was rightfully his. His speech was filled with promises of a renewed America, a nation that would once again be great under his leadership. The significance was not lost on anyone. Headlines screamed of a historic comeback, and the crowd's reaction was a mix of joy and vindication. Trump, at 78, had become the oldest person ever elected president. His age, however, seemed to be just a number as he exuded energy and determination. More remarkably, he was the first former president in over 130 years to achieve this feat. This placed him in the annals of history, alongside the likes of Grover Cleveland. It was a victory for the ages, a testament to his enduring appeal, and a harbinger of the political earthquake to come. The streets were filled with jubilant supporters, waving flags and chanting his name. The world watched, holding its breath. From the bustling streets of New York to the quiet villages in Europe, people were glued to their screens, witnessing history unfold. Congratulations poured in from allies and adversaries alike, a mix of admiration, apprehension, and disbelief. World leaders, some with cautious optimism, others with clear concern, reached out to acknowledge the new reality. But amidst the celebrations, the work had already begun. The campaign headquarters, once a hive of election activity, now turned its focus to the transition. The Trump machine, never truly dismantled, roared back to life. Staffers, old and new, were already deep into planning and strategizing for the next 4 years. The transition process was underway, a flurry of activity behind the scenes. Meetings were held, documents prepared, and strategies discussed. Key appointments were being made. Each decision was scrutinized, each name analyzed for what it would mean for the future of the administration. Policy positions were being solidified, advisors huddled with Trump discussing the direction of the new administration, ensuring that the promises made during the campaign would be kept. Trump, a man who thrived on chaos, was already imposing his will on the machinery of government. His directives were clear, his vision unwavering. The date circled on everyone's calendars was January 20th, 2025, Inauguration Day. Preparations were in full swing, with every detail meticulously planned. The day Trump would once again stand before the nation and take the oath of office. The anticipation was palpable. Supporters and detractors alike awaited the moment with bated breath. His supporters, energized by his victory, were eager for the promised changes, for the return of Trump's brand of America First policies. They believed in his vision and were ready to see it come to fruition. His detractors, on the other hand, watched with a mix of trepidation and anger, bracing themselves for what they feared would be a tumultuous 4 years. The nation was divided, and the road ahead was uncertain. The transition of power is a delicate dance in any democracy, but with a figure as polarizing as Donald Trump at the helm, the stakes were even higher. The atmosphere was charged with tension, and the nation was on edge. The nation held its breath as the gears of government began to turn, the anticipation palpable in the air. The outgoing administration handing over the reins to the incoming one was a sight to behold, a testament to the resilience of democratic institutions. It was a period of uncertainty, of speculation, of whispers in the corridors of power. Conversations were hushed, and every move was scrutinized. Trump, never one for subtlety, had made it clear that he intended to make a statement with his cabinet appointments. His choices were bold and often controversial. Familiar faces from his first administration were rumored to be returning, bringing with them a sense of continuity and loyalty. Loyalists who had weathered the storms of his first term were ready to stand by him once again, their loyalty unwavering. But there were also whispers of new blood, fresh faces who could bring new perspectives and ideas to the table. Outsiders with their own agendas, adding another layer of intrigue to the already volatile mix. Their presence hinted at potential shifts in policy and strategy. The policy pronouncements began almost immediately, signaling the start of a new era. Trump, true to form, wasted no time in outlining his priorities. Immigration, trade, and foreign policy were at the forefront of his agenda. Foreign policy, all were on the table, subject to his unique brand of disruptive politics. His approach was unconventional, often catching both allies and adversaries off guard. The world listened, trying to decipher the meaning behind his words, to predict the impact of his actions. Global leaders and analysts were on high alert. To predict the impact of his actions, experts dissected every statement, every gesture, looking for clues about the future direction of his administration. Amidst the whirlwind of activity, one thing was clear. Trump was back, and he was ready to shake things up. His return to the political arena was nothing short of dramatic, and he was ready to shake things up. His bold statements and decisive actions left no doubt about his intentions. The question on everyone's mind was, how far would he go? The uncertainty loomed large and the nation braced itself for what was to come. Analysts debated, news anchors speculated, and the public reacted with a mix of hope and apprehension. The transition had begun, and the world was watching. The campaign had been brutal, a no-holds-barred slugfest that had left the nation exhausted and divided. The air was thick with tension, and the political landscape was more polarized than ever before. Voters on both sides felt the weight of the relentless battle, each convinced that the future of the country hung in the balance. But for Donald Trump, it was just the beginning. His victory was not just a win, it was a signal, a clarion call that his brand of politics had struck a chord with millions. His victory, he believed, was a mandate from the people, a validation of his worldview. He saw it as an endorsement of his unorthodox approach, his willingness to break the mold and challenge the status quo. And he was determined to make the most of it. With a renewed sense of purpose, he began to strategize, planning his next moves with the precision of a seasoned tactician. The rallies began almost immediately after the election, a series of victory laps designed to fire up his base and send a message to his opponents. These events were meticulously planned, each one a spectacle meant to capture the nation's attention. From state fairs to packed arenas, Trump crisscrossed the country, basking in the adoration of his supporters. Each stop was a testament to his enduring popularity, a chance to reconnect with the people who had propelled him to victory. The energy was electric, the crowds chanting his name, hanging on his every word. The atmosphere was charged with excitement, a palpable sense of unity and purpose among his followers. The message was clear: Trump was back, and he was here to stay. His presence was a constant reminder that he was not going anywhere, that his influence was still very much alive. He railed against the fake news media, the deep state, and the radical left, painting himself as the outsider, the champion of the forgotten man. His rhetoric was fiery, his attacks relentless, each speech a rallying cry for his supporters. His words resonated with his base, fueling their anger, their resentment, their belief that he was the only one who could save them. They saw him as their voice, their defender against a system they believed had failed them. The rallies were more than just celebrations, they were a show of force, a reminder to the political establishment that Trump and his movement were a force to be reckoned with. Each event was a demonstration of their collective power, a signal that they were not to be underestimated. And as the crowds roared their approval, it was clear that the Trump era was far from over. The enthusiasm was undeniable, the commitment unwavering. For his supporters, these rallies were a reaffirmation of their beliefs, a promise that their fight was not over. As the dust settled on the election, a sense of unease began to creep across the nation. The echoes of 2020, of the contested election, of the violence at the Capitol, were still fresh in everyone's minds. And as Trump began to sow doubts about the integrity of the vote, the temperature began to rise once again. The claims were familiar: voter fraud, rigged machines, illegal ballots. The evidence, as before, was scant. But for Trump's most ardent supporters, it was enough. Fueled by his rhetoric, they began to echo his claims, spreading conspiracy theories on social media, sowing distrust in the democratic process. The media, already deeply polarized, became even more so. Conservative outlets amplified Trump's claims, while liberal ones denounced them as baseless. The nation, already divided, seemed to be splitting further apart, retreating into its own echo chambers, where facts were malleable and truth was elusive. The situation was volatile, and it was unclear what the coming days and weeks would bring. But one thing was certain: the wounds of 2020 had not healed, and Trump's return to the White House had only served to reopen them.